2, 3.
Another. Because he's the revelation of God to us. John 1:1 tells us he's the Word in that he reveals God to his creation. And he is the Word that God used to create everything. Go read John 1. So now, how can modalism be true if... You see that? Where's your Father? You know neither me nor my Father. If you knew me, you would know my Father also. Post John 8:17-18 one more time. John 8:17-18 one more time. No, he's not, Spirit of Truth, so you're not listening. We just said Jesus is not the Father. That's modalism. Okay, John 8:17-18, one more time. They're one in essence and nature in their being. Unless you believe your God is identical to creation. John 8:17-18, not 17-18. John 8:17-18. Thank you, sister. Okay, now watch this, folks. Let's read it one more time. Even in your law, it has been written that the testimony of two men, here men stands for persons. Two persons is true. I am he who testifies about myself, and the Father who sent me testifies about me. Jesus is saying that he and the Father constitute as two persons testifying. But wouldn't Jesus be lying if he's the same person as the Father? It's okay, sister. But according to modalism, Jesus is lying, right? Don't forget, natures don't testify, persons do. According to them, Jesus is the human nature of the Father. So he's not two persons. Right? So my question is, how can Jesus say that he and his Father fulfilled the demands of the law for two men testifying? For two distinct witnesses. How can Jesus say he and the Father fulfilled the demand of the law if Jesus is the same person as the Father? You see what modalism does to the character of Christ? It makes him out to be a deceiver. And we really don't know what God is like. After all, Jesus prays to the Father. However, he's not the Father. I mean, he is the Father, human nature of the Father. Sorry. I apologize. So then, Jesus has been deceiving his followers because he gives the impression that he's a distinct person from the Father, but in reality, he is the Father because he's the human nature of the Father. So did Jesus ever reveal the Father to us in truth? According to modalism? Did Jesus ever reveal the Father to us in truth? When all along he gives the impression that he is the Father, I'm sorry, don't mean to confuse you, God forgive me, that he is not the Father because he prays to the Father, speaks to the Father, communes to the Father, all of which demonstrates he's not the Father. So then how can Jesus be trusted when he never gave us a true revelation of the Father, because he is the Father according to modalism? But when he speaks to the disciples, he leaves us with the impression he's not the Father. So what kind of revelation did Jesus give us? One that was unreliable and deceptive, don't you think? You follow with me? Hope I didn't confuse you guys. You understand what I'm saying, right? If Jesus goes around speaking of the Father as the one sending him, speaking as the Father as someone he prays to, speaking of the Father as someone distinct from him, doesn't that tell us he's not the Father? What is Jesus communicating if he's not communicating the fact that he's not the Father? But in modalism, he is the Father. He's the human nature of the Father. That means for all those years, Jesus was deceiving people into thinking he was someone other than the Father, when in actuality he is the Father. So he never gave us a true revelation of what God is like. See the deception? You know, here hold on, now let me talk to my father right now. Hey Dad, I'm in the room busy. Oh, by the way, I'm actually the same person as the Father. I'm simply his human nature. So when I was talking to the Father, I was actually speaking to myself. Right? And in reality, I actually sent myself. And by the way, in the baptism, that voice that said, "You are my son," that's actually me saying to myself, to me, that I am my own son. So Jesus was deceptive because he never gave us a true revelation of who and what God is. But anyway, John 1:1-2 and John 8:17-18 are just some of the many verses that destroy modalism. Right? John 1:1-2, when pros is used with an object, in the beginning was the Word was with pros, tantheon, the God. When pros is used with the accusative, an object, it means intimate personal fellowship. That means before creation the Word was having intimate personal fellowship with God, which means the Word is a person distinct from God, and he's not just an idea in God's mind. And that, by the way, destroys Unitarianism as well. And then John 8:17-18, again, let's quote it one more time to show that modalism makes a mockery of this passage. John 8:17-18. Let's quote it one more time. Even in your law, it has been written that the testimony of two men is true. Notice, here men is simply another way of saying persons. How many persons does the law require to validate a testimony? Two. What does Jesus say in verse 18? John 8:18. Now notice what he says. I am he who testifies about myself, and the Father who sent me testifies about me. Now notice what Jesus is saying. The Father and I, right, are two men or two persons, thereby fulfilling the requirement of the law for two independent testimonies. That's what Jesus is saying. See, my Father is one man or one person, and I'm another person, and both of us testify. Therefore, we are satisfying the demand of the law. But if modalism is true, Jesus is not a second witness. Jesus is a single witness because he is the Father. How could Jesus say he and his Father constitute as two persons testifying, thereby fulfilling the requirement of the law, if Jesus is the same person as the Father? That's not two men, that's one person. Right? You with me there? Anyway, guys, can you watch the room for a second? I got an important call that's long distance. Let me just